In college, you get a good idea of what you're going to be going into later in life, or what you hope to, but not necessarily how to do it. What you don't necessarily learn, or at least in my education specifically, I haven't learned, okay, but how do you put it together? How do you actually produce something? And God blessed me with a ministry-based opportunity with that.
Working with the local church to take the hope of Christ to every student in the United States. This is First Priority. Now here are your hosts, Steve Chirico and Brad Skelling.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the First Priority Podcast. I'm Brad Skelling, and I'm glad that you're here today joining us. Steve, welcome to the show.
What's up, Brad? Thanks, man. I'm glad.
How are you?
I'm glad you're here, too. I'm glad you're here, too, buddy.
Well, for those of our folks who are watching on YouTube, they can see that here isn't in the same place because we're on Zoom today, recording an intro to a conversation I had with our intern, Grace, yesterday in the office. So even though we're not together, it is good to be together, kind of a conversation.
It is good to be in the same place for a moment, no matter how far away we are. Exactly right.
That's right. That's right.
So before we jump into your conversation with Grace, you got any announcements for us this week, Brad?
Well, I got the same with a little twist to the spring meeting. Spring meeting registration is live. You can go onto our webpage, click on events, or I believe it's firstpriority.club/events. And you can see the spring meeting dates there. We got one in Nashville, May 1 and 2, and one in Tampa, May 8 and 9. Those are both Monday and Tuesdays. And
we're in Nashville. We're in Nashville on the 1st and 2nd.
We are.
I should probably put that on my calendar.
You should probably put that on your calendar. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
We are meeting in your office and playing with the bats that are on your wall if you're not there. So
yes,
either way, it'll be a good time.
Plenty of baseball and Star Wars memorabilia all over that place. How about it?
Mm-hmm. I started hanging some of that stuff up on my wall too, just so you know. You probably didn't notice because you're not in the office yesterday, but yeah, I'm having fun.
Good. Well, I got a story time for you.
Yeah, give me the story.
Well, and it's not a specific one. I've done this to you before. I'm going to do it again. So as I know a lot of you do, I use social media as a platform to double check, watch people, see who's throwing up what, all that good stuff. And noticed a few weeks ago, South Florida was starting to talk about clubs they had relaunched. Next thing I know, I see Kansas City talking about new clubs launched. And then I hear in a meeting that Tennessee One's got new clubs launched. And I think Arklatek's also relaunched too. And so it's March when we record this podcast. I'm not supposed to date it, but I did. It's March of 23. And we are still launching clubs. In fact, I may even in our local area have a few. And so I thought how great it was. There was a time in First Party Nashville, we talked a lot about the 4 phases.
Yep.
And the ending of phase 4 always said this. It always said, once you hit the end, go back to the beginning.
Yep, that's right.
And I'm seeing that inside of our epic launch of clubs, right? We're getting to the end of a school year, and yet for a bunch of us, we're going back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Because we know that these clubs that we're launching, even though they're going to only have 2 full meeting months, most likely, there's a great opportunity to, prep a club in such a way that when it launches in August of this fall, it's going to be just absolutely fabulous. So
that's right.
Story time with Steve is just encourage all of you out there who have been just pounding it, trying to get a club, trying to get a group of students to take ownership. And all of a sudden, bam, it goes in March and you're like, ugh. Now the timing of the Lord is perfect.
That's right.
He is, he's doing exactly what he wants with that team. So stay faithful. And we'd love to hear if in April, there's a few of you that still launch another club. Again, you're thinking about August or September. We'd love to hear about that. Don't be afraid to throw that up on the podcast notes.
Well, if I can put some numbers behind that, as of a couple days ago, when I looked at the numbers, we had 17 new clubs launched. So just to affirm that, I can't give you all the 17 school names, but there were 17 new clubs launched this past few weeks. So it is true. I'm seeing that more post-COVID, that, pre-COVID, we launched in the fall, we launched a few more in January. That'd kind of be the run of it, but we're just going whenever it can happen now is when it goes. And we continue to see that. So
Great.
Yeah. And we are going to continue to look at that. I guess it's not a club necessarily, but Tennessee One is piloting a new version of our app in April. So I'm looking forward to that as well and seeing where that can lead for the clubs at large around the country. So super excited. A lot of good things happening.
Yeah, it's great.
Mm-hmm. Well, should we jump into the conversation today?
Well, yeah, you talked to Grace.
Yeah, Grace is our current intern. I don't know if everybody knows this, but First Party of America advertises internships in the greater Nashville area. So Trevecca, Lipscomb, Vanderbilt, MTSU, Williamson College, we just post multiple different internship opportunities. Grace is currently doing a systems and communications marketing internship. We advertise ministry internships. I actually referenced that on our conversation, is that you've got an intern right now that's focused on ministry that came through our application process. And then audio engineering, things of that nature, video, whatever we need. We actually have, he's a former intern now. Aaron is the guy he came through MTSU as an intern. He stuck around and he's been editing these podcasts for the past several years for us. So we feel like it's a good thing. We feel like this conversation can benefit the people that are running clubs and doing ministry around the country. So we jumped on and had one.
It's great. I can't wait to hear it. Let's roll.
Sounds good.
Well, as Steve said, I am here with Grace. Grace, welcome to the show today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. Yeah, it's good to have you, not just on the show, but as an intern with First Priority. So obviously you're new to our audience. Introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us who you are, where you are, what's going on in life.
Yeah. So my name is Grace Poole. I am a senior at Trevecca Nazarene University, and it's located about 5 minutes from downtown, about a mile. You don't even have to get on the highway to get there. So I'm kind of right where Trevecca is called the school that's right in the heart of the city. So we're right there. And yeah, so I've gone to Trevecca all 4 years. I'll graduate in May, beginning of May. And I now have a double major. It's organizational communication and interpersonal communication. I have a background in a little bit of music, more worship. So I went into Trevecca studying worship. But about 2 years in, I realized I wanted a more focused degree that was not as much musically focused, but more people focused. And I wanted to take my degree and still do music with it, but also be able to be in an organization of people. So I was like, I can learn music on the outside, but I want to learn how to work with others, specifically in ministry is the hope. And so I switched my major into communications, specifically organizational communication. And then I tagged a minor of leadership studies. So with that, I was hoping to go somewhere into ministry, being within the church or somewhere along that lines. And so, yeah, so I've been in this program for about 2 years, and I'll finish it in May. And last summer I had the opportunity to have an internship in more of like the HR world. And it was in a secular setting, and it was really great. I learned a lot from it. And what I walked away wanting to know more is the PR side of things. So my degree sets you up for almost anything. I kind of call it the business degree without the math. Is kind of what I like to call it. So I had PR classes, I had HR classes, I have just like theories classes, so theories of people. So it kind of brings a little bit of psychology into it without the science behind it, if that makes sense. And so I've got a wide range of courses that I'm in, I have been taking. And so I wanted to see more of a PR and marketing side of things. So going into this semester, it was about the ending of last semester that I was like, okay, God, I am a senior. I don't have time for anything, but I want to know more. I want to learn more. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to put it in your hands. If I'm meant to have something else on my plate, it's going to be from you and you only. I'm not going to shove it in there, that kind of thing. And so I was just online, and I was just searching for internships. I didn't have high hopes. It was more of just a smooth search. And I saw first priority PR and marketing. And I was like, okay, I didn't know first priority. I was like, well, let's just read about it, see what it is. And so I pulled up the website and I was like, well, this has God written all over it, you know, like basically. Yeah. And I was like, that's so interesting. You know what? I'm going to just put it out there. And so then I talked to Christina on the phone a little bit later, and I just got to know first priority a little bit more. Sure. And I was like, okay, God, I think if you're going to tell me anything, I think it's going to be this. So, you know, he was pretty clear with that. And so it was kind of cool to see that unfold. And when you put something in God's hands, how he uses it for good. And so I am somebody that learning is what drives me. Okay. I love to learn. Yep. And in college, you get a good idea of what you're going to be going into later in life, or what you hope to, but not necessarily how to do it. Yep. You know, you take the courses and like the PR and marketing courses, they tell you the baseline thing of, okay, keep all the fonts the same, keep all the colors the same, that kind of thing. So that's the base that you learn. You learn the foundation. Okay. What you don't necessarily learn, or at least my education specifically, I haven't learned, okay, but how do you put it together? How do you actually produce something? And here and there I get, you know, group projects, different things. Yeah. But I really wanted to learn what it is like to actually put this into practice. So I've got this knowledge. I've got these courses that are teaching me things. How do I put this into practice? Yep. And God blessed me with a ministry-based opportunity with that. And so,
So tell me about, what are some of the practices that you're doing? Like you're uploading the podcast for us. You're doing some social media things. You're using Metrical are you using Metrical for the first time? Yeah. Yeah.
So what's something interesting about this internship is I'm a senior, and I guess in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, there's got to be a software out there that lets you set up stories or posts or things. But I never knew any names. I never have touched a software.
And they don't teach you that in college.
They don't teach you. At least they didn't teach me. Or maybe I wasn't paying attention that day.
You're not the only one. You're not the first one to come through and say that. Yes.
Yeah. And so I coming into this, I knew I was going to be working with podcast posting, writing, descriptions, things like that. And so what I've gotten to learn is that there are softwares out there that can basically do anything you want them to. They're beautiful. Yeah. And so learning how to use those, that has been a big part of this internship. Another thing that I would say is sort of my challenge, but it's something I'm really learning from this so far, is graphics. Okay. I never... I think there might be some courses at Trevecca that have graphics, but for my specific degree, it's not required. Okay. And so I know kind of like your base idea of graphics, I guess you could say, from just creating presentations for my college courses, but I really didn't know all the beautiful things that you could do with it. Sure. And so that is something that I would say is it was sort of my weak spot, and it still is, but I'm learning a lot from it. Okay. So I've been creating some graphics for the stories mostly. Yep. Just, you know, learning through that. And then, I've been uploading the podcasts. I write the descriptions, make sure if there's any links that need to be tagged in there. And then I upload the marketing for the podcast as well. So the posts that you see, the stories, the recaps, whatever it might be. Yep. But it's been great. I've learned a lot. It's using the fundamental things that you learn in class, but actually putting them into practice. And that's something they don't usually teach you in college. And that's why I love internships.
Well, I talked about that a lot graduating from college and stuff too, because you learn a lot of theory, you learn a lot of book knowledge, you learn a lot of things, but you don't actually lead a small group or teach a lesson in college. I mean, you get up and make a presentation to your class, but that's not the same thing as leading a youth group in my situation anyway. And you're saying the same thing from a communications and marketing perspective. And I know for me too, I don't know if people in the audience are listening thinking, man, so there's a 20-year-old sitting there who says they're not good at social media or graphics, I guess. You didn't say social media, but, for me, it's graphics, like, we kind of broadly generalize to say, well, these I forget what generation you're in, but Generation Z.
I do too. I think so. Yeah.
Everybody's good at that. So from a college perspective, maybe you'd say, hey, they don't need to learn that because they do it every day anyway, but that's not the case.
Not the case. No, I say you might overestimate us sometimes.
Oh, really?
I hate to say that. I think if you put us into a place where we get to use our practices,
sure,
then I think we can see ourselves start to thrive, but we got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And so when looking and applying for jobs, like from my perspective, if I were to go and look for jobs, there's a lot of the places we want 4 years of experience of this. We want somebody that's skilled. There's not a whole lot of entry-level positions.
Mm-hmm. Your
entry-level positions are your internships.
Sure.
And I think the biggest thing is understanding that when we come in, we're learning.
Yep.
We have the foundations, the fundamental knowledge, but we might surprise you on what we do and we don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I would say that internships for me have really just taught how to take what I know,
mm-hmm.
what I understand,
mm-hmm.
and then also just the social aspect, like for social media.
Yep.
They don't really teach social media a whole lot. There might be a course or two, but it's not always required. It might be your elective courses.
Even in the communication major?
Yeah.
That's a thing?
I haven't learned anything for social media specifically. You learn, so what I have learned it was in theories of communication,
mm-hmm.
Some basic, like I think it might have been a day. We just spent like an hour, one of our hour classes on just knowing like, okay, how to use like social platforms, the impact of media on people and decision making.
Yep.
But it's not something that you're really spending 16 weeks and projects and tests and things like that.
Learning how to grow an audience or whatever the case might be.
Yeah. And I think there's some of that sprinkled in, but you really
mm-hmm.
don't learn that until you are pulling up your own social media page and trying to figure that out.
Right.
And so that's been something that I've learned a lot about is like, okay, how do I take what I know?
Yep.
Knowing that social media can target an audience.
Yep.
And knowing that you've got your different audiences.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I take what I know from that? And then also what I know from just working with others on group projects, creating presentations, and then also what I've learned about this organization. So specifically, if we're talking First Priority, what I've learned about First Priority, how do I take that and put it all together?
Sure.
And I would say that's the first time I'm really ever doing that sort of thing. It's like I learned bits and pieces here and there, but really putting it into practice. That's what I've been able to, that's what I've gotten the opportunity to do with this internship.
Nice.
And it's been great. And it's something like, I think I don't know if I would say I surprised myself, but I learned things about myself as well. You don't know what you know until you know it. And you don't know what you don't know until you don't know.
Exactly.
And so
make stops to make you think.
Yeah, it really does. And so I think something that I've had to also remind myself is you're not going into this internship, you're not expected to know everything. Yeah. You're expected to have questions and ask and things like that. And so that's something I daily, or, in my projects, I remind myself, you're an intern. You're not somebody that they brought in thinking you know everything.
Sure.
But you also, you have input that you can give if needed. And so,
So you have the freedom to not be the brains of the operation.
Right. Mm-hmm. But use what little brains you might have, pick and see, that kind of thing.
You've been great. We had a marketing meeting last week. We're doing another one this afternoon yet. Just talking about, reaching a generation, right? And how can we help students form a club in their school? And you've offered some great insight into that. And we're glad to have you on the team.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So we've got a lot of directors that listen to this, a lot of staff members, but a lot of, just club coaches and people who are out there doing ministry. And we not only have marketing and communication internships, but we have ministry internships, and we do, audio engineering, because our audio engineer came from an internship. We do a lot of different things, but what would you say to that adult who could use some help and says, hey, maybe an internship is for me? What would you say? What advice would you give them, having been in your second internship now?
Yeah. I will always and fully advocate for internships. And I think something that might be a misconception is that internships are meant for post-graduation, and they aren't. Okay. Or at least in my own opinion, they aren't. And so when I was speaking to some of the other communication majors that are freshmen and sophomore, I told them, I said, get in one now. Yeah. Get yourself signed up. Start one now, because when you're in it, that's when you really learn, is this something I want to do? Yeah. Or not. Yep. Yeah. Do I need to change my major? Makes sense. Also it helps you set yourself up for, okay, I know what I've learned, but I also now I know what I don't know. You know, I know what I know and I know what I don't know. So what courses can I schedule for the rest of my career? And so what I would say to those who are saying, okay, is an internship right for me? I would say target those that are going to be help. They're going to be an extra set of hands, but also someone that you can help as well. Sure. I would say that it can also vary depending on the person, depending on their level. Yes. Also, if they're a freshman or a senior. So when looking at maybe internship, or interns, a lineup of interns, say, okay, how much can you pour into them? How much do you have to offer? Because you don't want to take them on, but then not be able to offer them help or guidance if that's what they're going to need. And so that was actually a conversation that Christina and I had before I joined in this is, am I going to need some more hands-on help? Am I a hands-off person? And I told her up front, I said, I enjoy learning hands-off, or I enjoy doing the work, finding what I don't know, and then coming to you and say, hey, can you help me? Yes. So I told her, I said, that's something I'm looking for, and that's how I learn. For some other people, it might be they need the hands-on at first, and then they're the hands-off. And so understanding that it's going to look very different for maybe your intern and somebody else's intern and me, So understanding what are you looking for? Intern is the word and the description of intern is not a one size fits all. That's right. That's right. And so know what you're looking for, being upfront with the intern, because they're also, they're probably still in school, or it might be their summer. So they need to have a good idea of what they're getting themselves into, especially with school and that kind of thing added onto it. And then also asking them, because like I said, we might have these courses, but we're also we're new to this world. You know, a lot of our jobs might just be like lifeguarding and things like that. And so we're really stepping, this is our first time really stepping into the job and the workforce. And so asking them questions will help them kind of know, okay, I have a say in this, I can figure this out, and it gets them thinking and them kind of understanding, well, can I take this on? Should I? Is this going to benefit me? Or would I end up making this process a little bit more difficult? So having good expectations of yourself as the internship site director, and also having expectations of your intern and being super clear and communicative during that process is something I would say. And being flexible in the midst of it as well. Because like you said, you had a conversation with Christina about what you're capable of doing, and your very different capabilities than some of the other interns we've had. And we have to adjust accordingly, right? You adjust those expectations. Like for you right now, to give very practical, tangible explanation of what you just said, you come in, you put 10 to 15 hours a week in every week, depending on many projects we got going on that week. But 4 of that is here in the office on a Wednesday afternoon. That's when we're recording this right now. You're in the office, you're working together with Christina. You jump in with meetings with Christina and I for marketing. We do some collaboration together. We've talked traction, just some very practical things. But the rest of the week, you're uploading the podcast, you're jumping on our Instagram profile and sharing different things, 30 minutes a day or whatever the case might be, and doing some of that just remote work for the other 6 to whatever that math is, 11 hours of your week, right? So then that would be different if you had an internship as more of a ministry. So I know, Steve actually, so we had an intern, somebody apply through our portal, firstparty.club/interns is the portal there, where you can get more information, but a ministry internship where she was really passionate about
the clubs and doing ministry. And she was more of a ministry major, ministry focus in what she wanted. So she went over to Steve. She's actually going to a club every week, being a club coach for that, but she's also working in media. So it's kind of that both and, yeah, to marketing communications, but ministry side of things too, where her week looks very different than your week does. And that's where some of that flexibility comes in.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
For sure. And I think that's beautiful and I think that's another important thing is for the intern to know what they're looking for out of that.
Correct.
Know, it's not a everyday internship that you can go find on a job site that, hey, you get to lead a club and lead kids to Christ and also learn how to market. Yep. And so, but that's a very real thing for a college grad to say, you know what, I feel God calling me into ministry, but I also have this degree I just got in marketing. And so, it's a very real thing to say, okay, but how in the world do I merge those two?
Correct.
And so knowing what God has called you to do can help you bring what you bring to the table.
That's right.
And then sort of make that that internship is fluid for you to be able to say, here's what I want to walk away knowing, how can we make this happen? And if it can't, there's another opportunity God has, and that kind of thing. And so just having that transparency and honesty up front, and just talking with the intern and being real about what you're looking for, what they're looking for.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Cool. Well, thanks for joining us today and talking about what you're doing with us. I know, we've got chapters and places all over the country that can utilize intern programs. So we're excited to maybe have this spill over into other communities. And so thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Well, Brad, so quite a young lady.
Yep.
What was your first takeaway from your conversation with her?
Well, Grace has been around for just over 2 months now in the office, coming in every Wednesday. Gotten to know her a little bit, not really well, but you can tell she goes after it. She's great at what she does. The thing that I got out of our conversation and just continues to reaffirm to me is that internships are mutually beneficial. Like she talked about, they learn a lot of theory in class. They learn about, growing a social media platform, but they don't learn how to use tools. What are the tools out there? Like right now we're using Metrical to schedule podcasts, but we've used Buffer before and Hootsuite and a lot of different things. And they just don't get into the practical, tangible application of all of that. And even as far as that goes, her talking about not being good at graphic design and kind of photography, where we think of a younger generation and, hey, they're all on social media, they're all knocking it out of the park, they're all influencers. We can broadly generalize that, right? But it's not true. Our generation has people who are good at that kind of thing and who aren't, who are, right brain versus left brain kind of people, and so does theirs. And just because they're younger doesn't mean anything, right? We still have to get to know them. We still have to train them and invest in them. And for us, this internship, it's not a huge deal, but it makes a big impact, right? We usually just have one person around the office as often as we can, as often as we get an application in, and they benefit us because they take some load off of Christina primarily. And they learn a lot as well in the process and always appreciate the opportunity to be hands-on with us. So it's a good thing. And I encourage, the reason I brought it on is because I encourage our districts and chapters to consider that as well. So, hey, you got a college in the area, whether it be a paid or an unpaid internship, we've had both. If they get college credit, we generally don't pay them because they're getting their credit. But if they're not, then we'll pay them an hourly wage just to come in and be a part of what we're doing. And like Grace, we get people like Grace. They love it. They have a passion for ministry, and it's typically a good fit.
It's great. Well, love that FPoA America is setting this precedent. I'm suspecting that Christina has a lot of the framework behind this, and so that if one of our communities, chapters, or districts wants to connect with this, that they can do that through Christina and just email her and have a conversation. I'm sure she's very good at it.
They can also get some preliminary language and see the application that we have up. Firstparty.club/interns, plural, INTERNS, is the website. So you can go on there, see some of the language that we have. Obviously, like you said, there is more of a process. She posts these opportunities in Handshake, which is where a lot of the colleges do. There's a lot of details that go in behind that yes, Christina can answer much better than I can. So it's great. Reach out to her, Christina@fpofamerica.com. So,
well, Brad, that's another good discussion in the books. Congrats.
It is. Thanks for joining me today. Thanks for listening in. We'll see you next week.